Hi folks, what's the crack, and welcome back to another episode of Meet the Members, where we have the chance to sit down and get to know some of the incredible people who call Ormobas their business home. Here today with the wonderful Cathy Craig. Hello.
Hello.
I feel like I'm just constantly getting you to do podcasts and stuff. It's brilliant. So I wanted to start off by asking you, when was the first time you played a video game? Were you a big gamer growing up?
No, I was not. First time I played a video game, I can tell you what age I was. I was probably 12.
Nice.
12, 13. And that was in the 80s, Matthew.
Perfect.
You were maybe your parents were the same age as me, I don't know. But anyway.
The 80s is in now, everyone loves the 80s.
Yeah, so, and it was a game called Chucky Egg.
Right.
And you basically were this little chicken, and you had to move the chicken along and jump over gaps, go up ladders, collect eggs. And we used to do this game, and we're totally addicted to it. There was me and my sisters. I had 5 sisters, but the one just below me and I were very competitive, or I was very competitive. Don't know if you can believe that or not, but yes. Anyway, so we used to have these competitions, but my father was like going, right girls, that's enough of the video game. What I want you to do is something useful before you do it. So he bought this game called 10 Not 2.
Okay.
And it was basically a touch typing game. Oh, I can't remember the name of the woman, Maeve, whatever it was. But anyway, you had to do this and you learned how to touch type. And that was one of the best skills I ever learned, because I can sit and touch type now and do that without looking. So you had to reach a certain level with your touch typing before you could play Chucky Egg. There you go.
That's great.
And one day my sister got so annoyed, and she just pressed her hands down on all of the keys, and she found a bug that allowed you to skip the level without dying. And I was like, are you kidding me? So then once we found that, actually all the fun went out of it, because then the shortcuts came in, the cheating came in, and that was it, finished.
Well, it's like playing a first person shooter with an aimbot, or some sort of other mod that just removes the whole game from it.
What's that? See, these games that you shoot, it's just not for me.
So Chucky Egg, what platform was that, do you remember?
Was it an Amstrad, or was it something like that? I remember our very first computer in the house was a ZX81 or a ZX Spectrum. Nice. I think it was Clive Sinclair who had invented that. Do you remember the guy? Did he not do something that's equivalent to what you would have now, those sort of electric scooters, where he had this moving vehicle thing? Do you remember? Clive Sinclair had developed something, but so ahead of his time.
Crazy.
Really. And he had this, and it was a little bubble keyboard. It was a tiny little thing. And then the code, you had to do your games in that. There was a little equivalent of the sort of asteroid game and stuff like that you had to shoot asteroids, but you coded it in and you put it in. And then there was another one where you had the tape recorder beside the computer, and you had to transfer it with the tape recorder. How that worked, I'm not sure. But yeah, things have developed significantly since then.
So if not becoming a hardcore gamer, where did you channel your competitive energy?
Sport.
Nice.
Yes. So I love my sport, always have. Played hockey at school, did a bit of running, did a bit of everything really. But there weren't that many different sports I could do. Yeah, there was hockey, and then in my lower 6th there was cricket. And we were Ulster champions. Now there were only 3 teams in the competition, and we got a bye to the final.
Yeah.
And I got 4 for 21, so 4 wickets for 21 runs. I was very proud of myself. But I think I was deceptively slow, because the ball was so slow coming. The batter swung for it, and that's what got me the wickets. But nice. Yeah, that was it. Did a lot of running. Lived on a sheep farm, so we were always chasing sheep, so could probably run. And then you were just told, you're on the cross country team, so by default.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, obviously your business is so much more than just what I'm about to say, but been tracking your journey for the last few years, and it's not exactly that you set out to start a gaming company.
Yes, well, I wouldn't say we're a gaming company.
No,
we sort of have difficulty describing what we are.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. I sort of say we're neurotechnology, but even that sounds a bit pretentious. So we're a tech company, really. We use immersive technologies.
Yep.
That's really what it is. I'm a psychologist, as you know. And for me, it's a brilliant technology to simulate and recreate sensory experiences, primarily visual, auditory as well. But that then gives you a whole new world that you can transfer into Obviously then for sport, you can simulate different things with balls coming at you at different speeds, different directions. You can hone those anticipation skills. It's the foundation in which all sports are built. And I suppose we've sort of moved that into a little bit, something slightly different, where it's about assessment of players, and we're looking at what we call neural fitness. So everybody knows what your physical fitness is, but that brain-body interaction is key to everything that we do.
A good friend of ours, Ryan Scullin, he's got a lovely phrase where he talks about the cognitive athlete.
Yes.
And I really like that.
Yes. Well, neural fitness, I suppose, would be similar to that in a way. So,
Cool. So you started off, well, not started off, so at one point in your career you were in academia.
Yes.
You were working with the elderly using immersive tech.
Yep.
And using some of that gamification elements to
right.
encourage movement.
That's right.
All that sort of stuff. And tell us, just kind of in bullet point form, how you've kind of taken that research, that insight, that passion into now this kind of tech company.
Well, I suppose if you think about it, for about 20 years I've been using VR. It's an awful long time, and I joke that I was using it when probably Zuckerberg was in nappies. But anyway, I mean, for me, that technology offered me a huge opportunity to be able to study things that are very difficult to study in real life. So my first project was goalkeepers when I was in Marseille in France. Did you not?
No.
Yeah. So I had seen that very famous free kick by Roberto Carlos. I think it was 97 before the World Cup in France in 98. That was the one that bent round and everybody was marvelling at this free kick. So for me, I wanted to know, well, what does that mean for a goalkeeper, a ball with spin on it? Because if you think of a lot of sports, a lot of people put spin on the ball in table tennis, of course, upstairs here, Normal Baz. Lots of table tennis. Neil McShane, yes, with his special pad.
Extra grippy.
Extra grip in his nice case. I've seen him, and he protects that. I wonder where he keeps that paddle. I think I'm going to find it one day. Yeah. And sabotage it with it. So anyway, putting spin on the ball, why would you do that? You must be able to get a competitive advantage. So what I was interested in is, what does that spin on the ball that causes the ball to bend, what does that mean for a goalkeeper? Is it more difficult to anticipate where that ball's going to go? Back to that anticipation part being key. If so, why? So I needed a technology that would recreate the viewpoint of a goalkeeper so that you're totally immersed in that and you see that ball coming at you as you would in real life. And that's essentially what immersive tech does. You're in that first person position, but you're active in the perception. So you talked about the first person shooters in those games. You use the keys to control your viewpoint. Here it's very natural. Turn your head to the left, to the right, up, down. It's your natural movement that changes your viewpoint, so it's a very natural interaction if you want.
Cool.
So that's where I started. The great thing at the time in Marseille was Adidas Innovation Team Football were given classes there, and they were very interested, going, what's this VR stuff you're doing? And I showed them, and I'll never forget the guy putting the headset on. Now remember, in these days that headset cost me €10,000. 10,000 euro. It was a very simple headset with a cable that connected to a computer. The interaction was done by what they called an electromagnetic tracker in the back. So it was one tracker, and all it allowed you to do was look around you. Rotational information only, no displacement. You couldn't really move. So he said, well, would you like to access some of the best players, like some of the clubs we sponsor? And I'm like, well, yeah, please. He goes, what about AC Milan? And I'm like, yeah. So I set off to AC Milan in my little Opel Corsa, showed up outside Milanello, and go to got a call with our meeting with Dr. Mieserman. Pull into Milanello, all the tifosi outside, all the fans there clinging to the fences. And then I'm going, where am I going to park my lovely little car with all the Ferraris there, you know? So anyway, that was a fantastic experience because I got to visit Milan Lab. This was 20 years ago. They were doing many things in sport that's quite commonplace in most sporting organisations now. But they were leaving no stone unturned in terms of performance, in that whole holistic approach to performance. They had their own chef. So the nutrition was taken care of. They had psychologists. They were looking at your gait, at your walk, at your balance. They were looking at dentition. They were looking at everything, and to get the best out of the players. So those were the ones that I started using VR with. Shevchenko was one of my participants. So when I see him sort of like as coach of the Ukrainian team now, all I can remember is that I gave him a clip round the head because he was doing my experiment and you had to press the mouse button left. It's going in the goal or it's not going in the goal. but I had to use the touchpad to actually click the next one. He saw me moving the mouse, the cursor with the touchpad, so he would take the mouse and then move it every time I went to try and click next. So he got a wee clip right there. And then I went, what did I do that for? But anyway, that was a fantastic experience. So that's where it started then. Moved back to Belfast in 2006, and then Queen's set up a fantastic lab for me that cost £100,000.
Nice.
Now that's to basically do what we can now do with the technology that costs £300 to £400. So that's what really happened, Matthew, was that we did a lot of the groundwork, a lot of the research in the research lab. Then it comes to how do you get the research out of the lab onto the pitch? Yeah. How do you do that transition? You need an enabler, and for me the enabler was the hardware. Price point, as you just heard, 100,000 down to £300.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer almost. That barrier to entry has disappeared.
Yeah.
It then comes down to the application, and then how can you make useful applications that add value. So I'm a great believer in immersive technology. It's not about simulating reality for the sake of it or for simulation's sake. You're doing it to add value. Do something you can't do in the real world.
And that kind of dropping of the barrier to entry in terms of the cost of technology has allowed you to move into these quite new spaces.
Absolutely.
For the last few years I've known you've been running primarily a B2B business.
Yes.
It's quite a high-end service. You're going into professional clubs around the world. And now all of a sudden you can offer that to me in my living room.
Yes. No, I mean, this has been a very exciting transition in the business over the last 10 months really. Well, 8 months to be honest. And I'll not forget the conversation we had. So James, as you know, joined us last January, and we were having a meeting in December, and he was going to do a lot of the marketing, the business development and stuff like that. And I said to him, James, take a look at that TikTok thing. My daughter's obsessed with it. I don't get it, really don't get it. You know me, I'm not a big social media person. So anyway, to cut long story short, he started dabbling in TikTok. We would use our software that we currently had to recreate famous free kicks, to show the goalkeeper's viewpoint, to share that. And everybody loved it. Class. And it was the Euros were on, we recreated that, and he put shout outs, what kick do you want to see? And we kept coming back, and I mean it was loud, can we not do this in my living room? I want to be able to, I'm a goalkeeper, can I not use it? Yeah. And that's when you suddenly ask yourself, why am I building tech that's just for such a small number of people, elite people that could have anything that they want? Surely the satisfaction would come from having everybody use it. So last October, in a startup, as you know as well, limited funds, decisions have to be made, choices have to be made. Yeah. And we said, folks, what do we do? Do we give this a punt? It was October for Christmas. Will we try and get a version built on the Oculus so people could play it in their living room? And that was essentially what we did last October, made the business decision to invest the next 8 weeks in that. And Ryan Scullin, that you mentioned, came and tried it just before we broke up for Christmas. And, we were all nervous about releasing it. And he goes, Cathy, this is brilliant. Wow. So, and that sort of gives you reassurance. We're very critical of ourselves as well. But there was this essence, it's so simple, Matthew. There's something very basic and simple but satisfying about catching balls and VR. Especially if the interaction's good, if you've preserved those elements that are important to get that sensation, it can be very satisfying.
I remember, I don't know if you would consider it immersive tech, probably not, but I remember on the PlayStation 2 there was a thing called an iToy. And it was a little camera you connected with it, and you could see yourself on TV, and you could I think one of the games was washing windows, and we loved it because it was so just satisfying. It was using your body, and this is just that on absolute steroids. So it's cool, and I mean the reach that you've had with this game is scary.
I know. So obviously, but James has done a fantastic job. TikTok, he drove that demand in a way. And obviously we live in an age where instant gratification is something everybody takes for granted. These kids had to wait because we were a small team just trying to do it, but get it right. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We were certainly not going to release something that we didn't think was good. And as I said, we've got very high standards, and we released it on SideQuest on Christmas. All very happy about it. Sold a few hundred copies, and well, not that many, a few hundred. I thought, well, that's okay. It's probably going to cover the cost. We've invested in this, blah blah blah. And we applied to go on the app lab
Good
and everything.
learnings.
Yes, all of this, and we've done that. They can keep quiet now, and we'll go on the app lab and see. We'll spread the distribution there. Well, we went on the app lab, that's Meta's app lab, and first weekend I think we sold, was it nearly 2,000, and we went, oh my word.
Mad.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
What's this about?
Yeah.
And now we're over 22,000, and now it slows down in summer, which is perfectly normal. So now we're like putting a lot of focus and emphasis on that, asking of course our community, what would you like? Multiplayer will be a big thing as well. Cool. Sort of like having that sort of like opportunity to shoot the ball at you and do some of that nice play and that nice very simple interaction.
That's great.
And of course then leaderboards, in-app purchases, those things, buying new bundles, and trying to, I suppose, have that middle ground. So obviously that's a game, but then we're having people who are goalkeepers who want to get better. But we've got this guy who's in his 30s, in the US, ex-NFL player, who does it every morning before his meetings. So whilst yes, it's a goalkeeping game, there's something about that neural priming, that hand-eye coordination, getting yourself sharp and on all the ball.
Do, like in the morning, of course.
Go.
You'll be showing up in like all these like cool, like influential YouTube morning routine videos now. It's like, I just hop on Cleansheet for 10 minutes before I start my writing routine.
Yeah, well, funny you should say that, because I was speaking to a guy who's one of the performance scientists at Orlando Magic, is it? What do you call the NBA team? Orlando Magic, whatever they're called in Orlando. But he talked about that yesterday. Really? And I know the English Cricket Board at a time when we worked with them talked about having that priming as well. So instead of the cricketers sitting drinking a cup of tea, that's me on the crease, you're shadow batting and you're getting your timing right and your coordination right, because there is that sort of like activation you can do in that space as well.
So like, where do you go from here? It seems like there's a few forking paths.
Yes.
Do you continue the multiple stream approach? Do you focus on one thing? Are those conversations that you're having now, like, how do you approach that? Because it has been a bit of a surprise, and so you're kind of like, what avenue do we do, and what time?
Well,
I
know, and it's actually a very good and a very serious question, because we do ask ourselves that, because we're a small team, and now we've got things we're trying to juggle quite a lot of balls. Because I suppose on the other side, that's I suppose the serendipitous piece from that's fallen out of Cleansheet Pro. We're getting more and more conversations with potential clients for the Pro version. Nice. So we just had somebody in this morning from a local team who was very enthusiastic about it. We've got a Premiership team, and we've got another Belgian team that's looking to use it. So, and I mean, this is what you find with these technologies. It's that, the technology adoption curve. They're not wrong. Does take a while to do that, so we're just getting these early adopters, and then you're going to have that chasm between, you have the sort of like more sort of like the other ascent to the top of the curve. Obviously Cleansheet, as long as it can take over in the background, we are investing a lot of time in that at the minute. Our VR developers working on that full time, got somebody else helping us with some of the other stuff. But I suppose the other side, and you asked me about why I started the business. Now, it wasn't to develop Cleansheet, the game that would make you a lot of money. Of course, it's great to be able to pay your bills and to pay yourself a salary, but what my passion really is about making that difference to people's lives. And you talked about the older adults, and for me there's a thing that's we talked as well a little bit about sport. And another sport I played, took up a bit later in life, was rugby. And of course the turmoil that the sport's in at the minute around head injuries and sport in general. Being a psychologist, it's right in my front door, if you want. I think we can do a lot more. I know we can do a lot more. In 2019, I had a couple of people from the Scottish Rugby came to see me about what could we do in this space. And we've developed a fabulous piece of technology now that can measure your brain health, and that's looking at that piece. And oh my word, we had a fantastic year there with the Belfast Giants. And to have the players come in, be able to test those players who were concussed, inform the doctor about what the results said. I'm not diagnosing,
Sure.
I'm only measuring,
Yep.
but I'm measuring those fundamental behaviours that are affected by a concussion.
Yeah.
So a concussion really is that temporary disruption to how your neurons and your brain talk to each other.
Yeah.
It disappears, it can disappear, but we don't know what happens if that happens repeatedly. If you don't recover properly, we know there's an increased risk of other injuries. So again, it's just trying to be mindful of that, and VR technology is a fabulous way of doing that. Not only do you control the standardization of the test and what they see, but you're measuring very accurately what they do through their movement. And movement is this underutilized biomarker of brain function. It's what I've been doing for the last 30 years because my PhD started, I think I told you before, with the preterm infants and looking at their feeding from a bottle and being able to measure this coordination. So that's my passion, is to make a difference there. My word, is it tricky? Is it difficult? And Ulster Rugby are working very closely with us now. Hopefully IRFU as well. I've got a call to make after this. But I'm a wee bit shocked by some conversations I've had with some organisations where I don't think player welfare has the place that it should have. They pay a lot of lip service to it. And that's very disappointing to see.
It's like a commodity for some organisations.
Yes, players are dispensable. These are people who have lives, who have families, who have children, who have a future beyond rugby. And if that future beyond rugby is early death, dementia, whatever, my goodness, you would think twice about playing it before you play the game.
And then ultimately the parents.
Yes, and I think for the school stuff, I mean, I've done a little bit in some of the local schools here, and I'm hopefully going to have a conversation with some people about this, because we aren't out to go, I'm going to charge, be really ridiculous about our prices. We have to of course cover our costs, but there's no reason why, as you said, this technology you could use in your living room. You're as a kid, sign up, do our tests, we store your data, something happens, hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, we knew what your baseline was, because without a baseline, without knowing what's normal for you, it's very difficult to know. And one of the neurosurgeons here in Belfast, I was talking to him about it, and I think his own kids play rugby, but he said he sees these schoolboys come in and the parents say, oh, but his cognitive function is, or his, he's not as, doesn't remember things, or he's not as good as he was. But if you don't have a reference, it's very difficult to know where you should be and how to help you rehabilitate that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it sounds like, if I picture you in the future in 10 years, I just see there's like 6 different companies underneath you. I'm like, go ahead, Cathy.
Oh, I know. And I think that, look, it is what it is, and probably somebody like Ian Brown would go, oh, Cathy, focus, would you? And he's probably right from a business perspective, but at this moment in time, I think it's right to continue with those things. What drives me is that passion. I'm super excited by Cleansheet the game, don't get me wrong, and nothing gives me more pleasure than to come in a Monday morning and read about this kid that said, oh dear Incisiv team, thank you so much. Before I wasn't even on the school team, now I'm starting and we're dominating school football. And that just gives you such pleasure. Another kid going, I'm at Man United Academy and I'm a goalkeeper and this is really helping me. Oh, brilliant. That just gives you huge satisfaction. And then I think what we need to do is more work around this neural fitness, this screening, and use the elite sporting organisations and then just make it available to whoever wants it. And I think that's the model we'll probably adopt, Matthew. So then, that takes off the hard work of that door-to-door sort of yes, you want it. Well, no, I don't think so. Let the players decide. You want it, here you go.
Yeah.
Just like we are.
Isn't it so funny that you've had to go on this bit to figure out that is a model that now you know it, you're like,
the B2C.
You could never have written this.
No,
you know what I mean? It's so great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, hard pivot. Why do you like coming to Ormo Bass every morning?
I love Ormo Bass, and I've been here now 4.5 years. So a long time. Yes.
Mark Todd.
Exactly. They'll just be going, how do we get rid of them? So I love Ormo Bass, as you know. I love the meeting people, bumping into people like yourself and others, and just the new faces, those serendipitous
Yeah.
Conversations, everybody talks about the water fountain moment, but you know, it is those, and it's the coffee shop, it's all of that, it's the buzz, it's the place, it's the table tennis now, it's like all of these things, and you know, I think that's what a community is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like everybody helps everybody else, it's that sharing of knowledge, it's the networking, and it's that everybody's behind you, you know what I mean? It's one big family, really.
It is. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. If you could go back in time to a Cathy 4.5 years ago, just was coming into Ormo Baths, just getting really immersed in this startup world. You had a couple of minutes of her time, what would you say to her?
Yeah, and I do remember that moment pretty well, full on in the academia. I think what I would say to her is stick at it, you can do it, and you will figure it out. So
awesome. Well, wish you all the best.
Thank you
very
very much.
excited. Every time I bump into you, I'm like, okay, what's happening now? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's fascinating.
Well, there's never a dull day.
That's very true, very true. Thank you very much for spending this time with us. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed getting to know a wee bit more about Cathy. I learned something new every time I talk to you, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you are not a resident listening in, trying to get some information about the people that sit next to you, so you can have, you know, that little springboard at the water cooler moment. If you're interested in coming to Ormo Baths to make it your business home, whether you're a solo entrepreneur, whether you have a small team, or even if you've got a large team and you'd love to get some awesome office space with not just a community, Cathy, but a family.
Exactly.
Contact form on the website is the place to do that. Come in, say hello, get a coffee, get a free tour, and we look forward to seeing you then. Other than that, be sure to check out some of the other episodes in this series and get to know some of our other residents, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you.